The draft lottery is in the books. The Bulls do not move up into the top 4, unfortunately. It was a pretty slim chance that they were going to be moving up anyway, given they had a 9.4% chance to get into the top 4. But I think we were all still hoping for that one lucky ping pong ball to bounce in the Bulls' favor. But it didn't happen. Instead, you had the team right below them in the standings, the team they beat in the first play-in game, and the Atlanta Hawks not only move up into the top 4, but walk away with the number 1 selection. Unbelievable. Now, this is just a quick reactions video. I'm not going to be diving into draft prospects in this one, although I will touch on some briefly. But in short, the Bulls are going to be picking 11th in the 2024 draft, which has been stated to be a fairly weak draft class. That said, you never really know how a draft class is going to perform until years after the fact. And you'll always find gems down the line that show why stars can still be found in any draft, in any portion of the draft. But anyway, my thoughts on this draft lottery, I actually have quite a few, and I'm going to do some further analysis on the NBA channel breaking down the implications for how some of these ping pong balls fell, but I'll keep this one a bit more Bulls-centric, and I would love to hear your guys' thoughts on the lottery as well. But first, we've got a brand new offer from our sponsors at Underdog Fantasy. That's right, when you sign up now, guys, they're giving you a special pick in your pick'ems to increase your odds of hitting. You also can now get up to $250 in bonus cash upon your first deposit. For those that aren't familiar with Underdog, let me tell you about the app and my personal favorite that I use on the app, NBA Pick'ems. With Pick'ems, you can pick higher or lower on most player stats and win money based on the ones you get right, up to 100 times your money, in fact. So, like I mentioned, take advantage of the special offer they have right now. Sign up with the promo code BULLCENTRAL to get your special pick in the lobby and up to $250 in bonus cash on your first deposit. I'll leave a link to the site and the code in the description. Now, there are a few things I wanted to clear up because I've seen so many people on Twitter, including Bulls accounts even, which is surprising, saying that had the Bulls lost to the Atlanta Hawks in that play-in game, they would have gotten the number 1 pick, because that would have meant the Bulls would have finished 10th in the East, losing that game, and of course the Hawks received the number 1 pick. That is not true. The lottery odds are based on a team's regular season standings and has no impact on what occurred in the play-in. The Bulls would have finished with the 11th pick whether they won that game or not. They finished 3 games ahead of the Hawks in the standings. Losing that play-in game would not have knocked them down to the 10th best odds of winning the lottery. Now, the only way that could be true is if the Hawks actually went on to make the playoffs and beat the Miami Heat in the second game. Then suddenly they're no longer a lottery team, and in that instance the Bulls would have moved up to 10th, or I guess I should say down to 10th in terms of the 10th best odds of winning the lottery. But come on now, we saw how bad that Atlanta Hawks team was. Not a chance they were beating the Miami Heat to get into the playoffs. So anyway, clearing that narrative up that the Bulls would have walked away with the number 1 pick in the draft had they just lost that one play-in game. That is false. Now, the other talking point is, well, if only the Bulls had just given up this goal of trying to hold on to that 9th seed so they could have home court advantage for the play-in game, they would have gotten the number 1 pick. I mean, yes, that is true, but when you're talking about being that high up in the standings and finishing with the 10th worst record compared to the 11th worst, and the difference of getting the number 1 pick at those spots is so small, you're really just splitting hairs at this point. The Bulls had a 2% chance of getting the number 1 pick. The Hawks had a 3% chance, okay? The Hawks got lucky. It happens. The same could have easily happened had the Bulls fallen to the 10th spot. The Hawks jumped them and ended up getting the number 1 pick anyway with just a 2% chance, and everyone would have said, well, if only the Bulls had just played a little better and finished just 1 spot better in the standings over the Hawks, they would have gotten the number 1 pick. Like, do you see where I'm kind of going with this? The draft lottery exists for a reason. It's to prevent teams from all-out tanking because you never know what's going to happen. Nothing is guaranteed. The Bulls could have tanked more towards the end of the season, lost more games to better their odds and fall even further below the Hawks did, below the Nets, the Jazz in the standings, etc. And as you see, it would not have mattered because falling further in the standings in this particular draft lottery would have dropped them back anyway, with the Hawks jumping everyone for that number 1 pick. And yes, I know that it's always best to try and give yourselves the highest odds possible if you're trending to be a lottery team, but again, it's never guaranteed. And you see things like this happen where 2 teams, the Hawks and the Rockets in this instance, which was actually the Nets pick that they owed for the James Harden trade, that really sucks for them that it ended up being a number 3 pick, but you could have a terrible season and have multiple teams jump you in the draft lottery. Look at the Pistons, for example, 2 straight years of finishing with the worst record in the NBA, and they landed with the number 5 pick in both years, which was the worst pick they could obtain with 4 teams jumping them into the top 4, not only in just 2024, but also in 23. It's why I don't subscribe to tanking. You could be tanking for years and it never gets you anywhere. Bulls tried that after trading away Jimmy Butler, and look where it got them, consecutive number 7 picks. And then the one year where they actually tried to win and go to the playoffs, they ended up getting into the top 4 and got the number 4 pick. It's a lottery for a reason. It's a bunch of ping pong balls spinning around and being spit out that determine a team's fate. Now, as far as what the Bulls can do with this pick, well, they could trade it. They could trade it on draft night anyway, and I wouldn't be surprised if they do, but I won't go into that now. I'll have a separate video out on that and what some potential trade packages could look like for the number 11 pick. But the way I look at this draft class is, and based on what's been said around the league, because there isn't a clear star or generational type talent in this draft, it's very possible you could hit on a gem and get a solid player that can provide a great impact to your NBA roster. I've seen some scouts saying that this is a tough spot to have the number 1 pick because you're more likely to bust on it than you would in other drafts. And so the Bulls could luck out in finding a great player later in the lottery. For the Bulls, I've said before, you absolutely need to prioritize need and fit over the best player available. They cannot add another guard unless they are sure they're going to be trading Zach Lavine and they let DeMar DeRozan walk. You need size, you need shooting. I look at a guy like Cody Williams, who's projected to go in that range. Jalen Williams' younger brother, by the way. Good outside game, can shoot, but also can attack the hoop and finish well at the basket. One of the better defenders in the draft. Good hustler on the offensive glass. I mean, these are all things the Bulls need. Yeah, he's raw. He's not going to help the team right away, but in thinking about the future, this is a fit the team is currently lacking. I also look at guys like Donovan Clingan, who I don't think will actually fall to number 11. They're even saying that he might go number 1, but a big-time center, 7'2", great rim protector, good footwork defending in the paint. Or how about Matas Pucelis? I'm pretty sure that's not how you say his name. I need to figure out how you pronounce that guy's name. But 6'10", great ball handler, decent shooter, decent passer, plays solid defense. Again, another guy who might not be on the board come number 11, but it's possible. There's also Zachary Richache, Kyle Filipowski. I mean, bigs or wings that are going to fill some of the holes on this Bulls roster. This draft class is interesting though, because you see these mock draft boards all over the place. There isn't a clear consensus number 1. They're saying that could be between 5 guys potentially. You're seeing guys being put 12 or 13 on some mock boards, but then go 5 or 4 on others. It's all over the place, which is what makes it so hard to predict who is going to go where, how it's going to shake out. Obviously, things are going to become a little more clear as we see guys performing at the draft combine, player stocks rising and falling in the weeks leading up to the draft. So I will have a deep dive prospects video for the Bulls, who they should be taking at number 11 in the next week or so. But until then, guys, as always, be sure to subscribe, and I will see you in the next one.